Welcome back to the PHENIX Investigations Podcast. We got Senior Investigator Joel Weis back with us again. Hey, Joel.
How we doing? How we doing?
2 thumbs up, 5 stars, always.
Can't complain. Nobody listens. That whole thing.
Yeah, no one cares, and we've got to sell ourselves into that second thumb up sometimes. Um, excuse me. So today it sounds like we're talking about one of my personal and I think everybody's favorite topics is, God forbid it happens to someone around us, but scams.
Yeah.
So obviously you are PHENIX's asset search senior expert. So you've been around the block, seen a lot of things. So want to hear some like wild stories and then kind of package in sort of like how can viewers of this protect themselves or their, like aging parents from falling victims to some of these scams. Let's kick it over to you, Joel. What's the top scam right now?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know top scam. At least top scam in as to what gets directed to us are targeting elderly, specifically elderly people who have lost a loved one, their spouse recently, and those couple of different names, romance scams. Sweetheart scam is kind of the big name that's kind of taken off with it. But these people, whether they're in the country, out of the country, we don't really know how they kind of pick their victims. A lot of times we've heard it's from dating websites, but it kind of comes from a couple of different things of, your mom. I've seen it to where a lot of it is female is the victim versus male, but we've come across a couple males. But getting convinced from your family of like, hey, it's time, you deserve to kind of move on, be happy, that's what your spouse would have wanted. They start dating, getting on these dating websites, putting themselves out there, and that's exactly what these people prey on.
Yeah.
And so the worst thing is the time involved that they do this too. It's not just one of those like, hey, I'm going to take $2,000 out of your bank account and you never hear from them again. These scams can go on for months, if not years. The longest one that I've seen that involved me and Brian in one of our cases, it was a male and he was involved for, I think it was just under 5 years with this scammer.
Oh my God, that is like the long con.
Yes. And they will keep going until either the person goes to the police or goes to somebody who kind of, tells them what's going on, or they run out of money and run out of use for them, basically. But the case that me and Brian worked involved a mortgage company. I mean, there's several different moving parts to this, but a mortgage company that had their email intercepted with payment information. They were asking for like where to send a lot of funds, and it was over $1 million with several different mortgage amounts. They intercepted that email chain, changed it, had them forward that money to an individual. So once they kind of noticed that it was stolen, they contacted us, the owner of that company. Knew Brian, our CEO, got in contact with him, and they actually even tried to do it again for a second round. One of the banks luckily kind of noticed now that like, hey, we need to look into it farther, and they thankfully stopped the second round from going out. But by then, I mean, it was a large chunk of money that had already went missing.
Interesting. So that started with an intercepted email, and I know in my own kind of inbox, I've seen scam emails that look like they're coming from a specific company. Like I'll get one that looks like it's from Microsoft or like the Geek Squad,
Yep.
but you look under the hood and where it's being sent from, and it's not legitimate.
Yeah, that's actually another a different scam. Tech support, computer emailing scams. So that's kind of how this one started, and it devolved into the romance scam for us. But yes, so a lot of those tech support things will come in, and it's whatever J Smith at Microsoft, instead of Microsoft.com, it'll be Microsoft and then some letters or numbers or something that differentiates it from actually being legitimate. But in our case, the mortgage the mortgage business didn't see that. They actually had a title company that the person's somehow involved with the owner of the mortgage company. They own the title company, and so didn't catch it. We get involved. So we start peeling back, okay, we got this bank account, we got this wire transfer over to this person. So we ended up, finding this individual. We figured out it's not some sophisticated person, but find this individual, kind of start getting his details, detailing out, okay, what does he own? Is he, a scammer that has $1 million house and just keeps scamming people? Wasn't the case. I mean, this guy, very, very broke, nothing really to his name. Seemed like he was working just kind of an everyday job. He ended up being out in Oregon. So we start the profile on him, start working up stuff on him, end up getting an on-site investigator out there. We interviewed him, and this is the gentleman that was involved for over roughly 5 years with these scammers. So he ended up getting the money. Over that 5 years, he ended up convinced that he is in love with this person that he's never spoken to. They've never even talked on the phone, never met in person, only through WhatsApp chat that they've actually communicated. So convinced him to open up several businesses. So on his dime, he's already opened up three or four businesses, opened up business accounts where he then deposits the stolen funds into, and then sends or gets cashier's checks from that money and sends them somewhere else. So we're following the money through the entire case. We ended up talking to, I think, 4 individuals over the entire country. I mean, it was Oregon, Ohio, Florida, Idaho, maybe. I don't remember the other state. But essentially, that's what these individuals do: is they have 3 to 4 or even 2 to 5 people that they are having romantic relationships with, send money all over the country to kind of dilute it and lose, if anybody looks into it, lose track of it. Usually it ends up going to some type of cryptocurrency, Coinbase thing, and then gets, shot out of the country from there.
So there's a lot of different elements to this. There's deceptive, there's like intercepting written communications, there's romance, there's, I guess, money laundering, I guess, if that is technically. How do you tie this all together?
It was a big investigation for us. So when we got the individual out in Oregon, we interviewed him. Me and Brian did I think 3 times. Pulling him out of work. So we actually walked up to his work, was like, hey, we need to talk. He kind of flipped out, that you have the wrong person type of thing. You give them a little bit of information, and then it's, they kind of have that oh shit moment and end up going into defensive mode, trying to defend everything. We ended up, having him at his house, going through records, going through his phone, going through just anything that had to do with these businesses and the stolen funds. And the most heartbreaking thing through, talking to any of these individuals is they really do think that they're in love with this person. They really think this person has feelings for them. A lot, they preying on that heartbreak of losing a spouse. It's the first time they felt something in, whatever it is, 2, 3, 5 years. And you have to tell them that it's not real. And once you kind of start breaking that down, you start getting into the questions of like, okay, did he have you do these 3 things? And it's like, well, yeah, how did you know that? It's like, 'cause that's the whole thing of this scam. And from there, he had you probably do these 2 or 3 things. Well, yeah. And so it's just breaking those things down. And then once we figured out that he was, a victim, essentially, we kind of just followed the money from there. So he actually got convinced out of everything to fly to, where was it? Mississippi, something like that, Mississippi, around in there, on his own dime, obviously, buying a plane ticket, flew out there, drove another 2.5 hours to a bank to get cashier's checks from that stolen money and send those cashier's checks to somebody else. And essentially we, from there followed, found where those cashier's checks got delivered to, found the address, found the owner, and basically just did the same thing over again, interviewing them. And eventually they end up like, okay, I kind of felt like something was wrong, but I didn't want to see it, or something like that. But it's one of those conversations that's just, it's so hard to have. But once you kind of start crumbling the wall, they kind of break down and tell you what their fears were, what they thought through the relationship, and those types of things.
That's what I'm obsessed with, is like that moment where, it's easy to convince yourself of something that you want so badly to be true, where you see through rose-colored glasses. What is it like being in that moment where someone is like in live time realizing that in my world they got catfished,
Yeah.
for the last couple years? What is that experience like?
It's hard. You know, I had a little tough times. I wanted to see them as a victim. Um, see that they got taken advantage of, through their emotions, through all the stuff that's happening. But then you also have to realize, A, our client's, the victim in it, and those people, they're not stupid. They're not diminished in their thinking or their intelligence or anything like that. So it's, once you kind of start thinking of it that way and laying out how these people went about this, it's like, you had a role in this. And granted, that may not have been your intention. Your intention was to start a relationship, but you saw the signs, you ignored the signs, you had feelings, you ignored your feelings, and proceeded to help them steal money. And once that helped me kind of get through that, like, they're a victim, even though
Yeah.
they still are, they had a hand in stealing somebody else's money.
Is the industry phrase I've heard, maybe Brian mentioned, money mules? Like
Yeah.
that person is not through their own intention, but they have been coerced into becoming a money
Yeah,
mule.
100%. And that term, I mean, it's hard because our client or any client can go after those people, but it's like, what are you going to actually gain? I mean, these people aren't millionaires. They're literally living off of Social Security in some cases, or, making a couple of grand a month, just barely surviving. Um, and so they can be at fault. They can be charged. But it's most of the time, if it's proved that you're not intentionally doing it, anything like that, if you start refusing to cooperate with law enforcement when they get involved, that's kind of when you fall into that trap of they're going to actually get charged, and the client goes after them.
I these are humans, and I don't want to demean them by saying the word money mule, but just to be specific, does the person in this story that is the money mule, is that person ever one to reach out to you guys, like to a private investigator, when they start to have these suspicions?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, we've stopped a couple of those kind of in their tracks for people of like, hey, I just started a new relationship online, and now they're starting to, we've been dating for a couple of months. I haven't actually talked to them, and in one case that I remember, and this is a very odd thing, the individual actually came to meet the money mule, essentially. That very rarely happens. And so we do get those calls of like, I have this funny feeling and I need it to be checked out. And if you guys don't find anything, I'll move forward with the relationship or whatever. And typically we end up finding that it's fake. And they're just in the beginning stages of setting up their con.
so I don't know if I'll articulate this question well. So there seems to be a common case that there's weird feelings that they have about these, and there's kind of like conscious or subconscious feelings of trepidation these people
Hmm.
have. Um, do you think that there's more of these people around that are like they know that it stinks, but they're embarrassed to go ask someone to look because if they discover what they assume, they'll feel dumb or embarrassed?
Yeah, actually, that's probably the biggest thing that I would tell anybody. Having, if your parents are getting elderly, your grandparents, like just having that conversation with them, that's probably the biggest thing that stops any older person from coming forward, is that feeling of embarrassment. how could I have been so stupid? I don't understand. I'm smart. I don't understand how this happened to me. And to be honest, these people are smart. This is what they do for 40, 50 hours a week. They are the expert in how to con people out of money. So it's not some simple thing that you fell for. I mean, it kind of is, but I mean, there's a lot more depth to it. There's a lot more smart to it. There's, these guys, they do this every day to, I would say, thousands of people. So just having that conversation up front, I think, is very important of, hey, if this happens, like, don't feel stupid. If you need to ask questions, that's what I'm here for. Have you had this happen, and have you had any money taken or anything like that? I mean, just having those conversations with people, I think, will help tremendously stop a lot of this stuff.
I think that's a really good point in terms of like messaging, because humans are kind of wired similarly. We all have idiosyncrasies and differences, but like the word con man dates back centuries. This has been happening in some shape for forever. And I think people think that like they're unique in having this problem. But I know my dad, I might have mentioned one of the last times we talked, he's given his bank account info to a cold caller. And, we have the same genes, so obviously he's a genius. And you just feel so embarrassed by little stuff like this, but it happens to tens of thousands of people a year, maybe more.
Yeah. I mean, I have a real world example of it happening to me, and I investigate this stuff for a living. Not so much like the romance scam or anything like that, but I mean, I went online researching a product that I wanted to look at, and ended up getting redirected to a scammer website. And for whatever reason, it was late that night. I was tired from work or whatever the thing was. I didn't even notice that it happened. Granted, it wasn't thousands of dollars, but I mean, it was $20, $30 item that ended up being a fake website. I thankfully saw it literally right after I purchased the thing, and was able to stop it. They didn't get anything else other than like the $30 or whatever. So it can happen to anybody. I mean, it is very simple to fall into these traps.
No, I mean, admittedly, I had a marketing client forward me an email and asked me if it's a scam, and then I clicked through the phishing link myself.
Yep.
It's like, God, how on earth did this happen to me?
Yeah, I mean, I became very suspicious. I mean, I even hung up on our IT department because they asked a weird question that I wasn't expecting, and I thought it was legitimately a scam call. And I hung up on them and called back to make sure that I had the right number, that I called the correct number.
Joel, so you called them romance scams or sweetheart scams. How often and I know like there's big high dollar like business corporate scams, but putting aside like the personal stuff, are most of the big personal draining scams related to romance and emotion and the sweetheart
They
area?
can be. The problem, or what sets those apart, is typically those scams are kind of focused on the money mule people. The large amount of money does come from bigger corporate companies, things like that. And then they get rerouted through there, and that's kind of what those scams are for. The bigger one that people right now are actually getting taken for millions of dollars just through or from them directly is through crypto scams. Oh, hey, I've got this great investment, and all you need to do is, wire this amount of money, and we'll triple your money in whatever, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. And a lot of times those, so a lot of people give them, it's like, oh, well, I don't trust you, we haven't worked together, so here's $5,000 or here's $1,000. Let me see what you can do. And how those people usually get that trap set is they will take that $1,000, and in 3 months they'll return them $3,000 or $4,000. It's like, holy shit, this actually works. They'll reinvest that $4,000, and all of a sudden they'll send them $10,000 back, and it's like, hey, I've got this bead on this great investment now. You've seen what I can do. Wire me 10, 20, whatever $1,000, and we can do the same thing, triple your money. And a lot of people fall into like, holy shit, I want to retire early, so instead of 10, let me send you 50, let me send you 100. And that's when they're like, they just kind of dwindle off the communication, and you never hear from them again.
Oh my gosh. So your suggestion is that like the real like I'm the victim of one of these scams. I give you $1,000 and you actually return $3,000 or $4,000 to me, knowing that that's your investment in getting a bigger return for
Yes,
me.
100%.
That's so I have a colleague that works for a tax attorney in San Francisco, and they call that pig butchering, I think, where his area of specialization has been doing like a tax avoidance and tax maintenance around people that have been a part of these pig butchering scams. So I know that's happening like crazy.
Yeah, yeah, we've worked several of those cryptocurrency cases, and that's the hard part is it's not even a regulated industry. So I mean, almost once you lose that money, we've gotten some money back for people, but those are extremely hard because it's so easy to send that money out of the country. With 10 minutes on a computer, I mean, you can just send millions of dollars to a different country.
Obviously, this touches like the pig butchering scam and the romance and money mule scams. How much has crypto entering the market made recovery a greater challenge for?
It's so hard, so hard. I mean, in that big scam that me and Brian worked, um, we we followed the money through 5 different people. Ended up finding an address in California, and from there traced the money to where it went from California to outside of the United States. Last I heard, I thought because of the dollar amount and the amount of people that were involved, because like I said, I mean the one guy in Oregon, 5 years. There was two of the other people that had been involved in doing this for over a year, and so the $1 million that they that went through their accounts of ours. I mean, just think of how much more that they actually filtered through for these guys. That it was getting into international law hands from there. I don't know if they'll ever find anything or shut anybody down, but yeah, crypto has made it so easy because at least through banks you have a paper trail, and you can
Right.
follow that so much easier than crypto because a lot of people, um, when you transfer crypto, you have your big long wallet address that's 15 to 25 letters and numbers and what have you. And if when you transfer crypto, that one transfer may get broken up, 50, 100, 200 times into small little things before it gets to the other side where it's actually the big amount of money that you sent. And so you transfer it 3 or 4 times, and now you're looking at thousands of transactions that you have to look at to actually find just the amount of money that was sent.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have a tenuous grasp of how crypto
Me too.
works at best. And I think that's kind of most people at this point. My perception of one of the benefits of crypto is that it's hashed and anonymized and largely untraceable, which obviously comes with a set of extreme dangers that you're describing.
Yeah, and I mean it is traceable. The untraceable part is you don't have to have your social or your name really directly registered to it. But if you go with a more legitimate broker, a Coinbase, something like that, you can still subpoena them, and you have to ask specific questions to get specific information. But at least like through there, I can set up a Coinbase account, use my email, and use a fake name or whatever. But the law enforcement can subpoena Coinbase to get my email, and then from there continue on the investigation to figure out who I am. So it's harder to trace, for sure. Not impossible, but very hard.
Oh, so it is all is not lost if it ends in the cryptocurrency universe. However, it's
Yeah.
just a greater layer of challenges.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're taking a hill and making it into 2 or 3 mountains, but I mean, you can get there. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort.
So, Joel, I'm never one to like be comfortable making blanket statements, so I don't think the right answer is nobody touch crypto and stay away. What would your advice be to your parents around crypto?
Yeah, I mean, crypto's not the devil, in my opinion. I mean, it is there. There is some unknowns for it. I think there is some goods to it. I mean, It's almost like gold, when people were collecting gold because they thought the dollar was going to drop out. And, you can't really trace gold. I mean, you melt it down, even if it has a serial number stamped into it, and it's untraceable money at that point. But mainly just know who you're signing up with. Sign up through legitimate things. Robinhood has crypto coins that you can go through and buy. Coinbase is another big one out there. A lot of people get pulled into crypto for these. I don't even know the name for them, but they end up being kind of those rug pull scams of like, hey, some influencer made a coin, everybody buys into it, and then it drops out, and everybody loses the money except for the person who created the actual coin. So if you've never heard of it, if nobody's talking about it, if you can't Google it and actually, in 10 seconds figure out what coin you're buying, it's probably not a good idea to buy into it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of this goes back to do research and look for credibility and access information that's available. And if you can't find information yourself, engage someone like yourself to find it.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Before
anybody
happen.
can go create a coin. Anybody can go create a cryptocurrency of their own, and it's whether or not it'll actually take off. I mean, that's probably the scariest part of it.
I think so. I was doing a little research, and these personal pig butchering scams where you get someone to invest in crypto and come and send some back that you described. I looked, these people are making their own like apps and things that look like legitimate technology
Yeah.
where you can process payments and put payments out. So it's even more so just because it's an app or a website or something that looks real. It's easier to create those products right now. And scammers are investing in that technology to look legitimate. So you have to look under the hood or
100%.
call someone who has an area of expertise here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just talking to people. I mean, that's been the biggest thing, that I've of how I've learned, and then obviously looking stuff up for myself. But yeah, just asking questions. Have you heard about this thing? And it's like if you ask 10 people and nobody's heard about it, and they are in that realm, whether investing, heavily invested in it. I mean, if they've never heard of it, it's like, okay, I need to go look farther to see what the hell this thing actually is.
It was a phrase that I think Brian or your COO Jill put in my head early in my relationship with you guys is this concept of you guys being a paid skeptic. And it's something I talk to my parents about is like having a skeptic's perspective first whenever you're talking to a new person about money, especially, is your first assumption should be this is not legitimate and do research to convince yourself that it might be.
100%. Yeah. I mean, Robinhood's been around forever, and I mean, it took me, you know, the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years of looking into Robinhood to even download it, to even see what I can even do in the stock market or anything like that. And Robinhood's a very legitimate app, very legitimate company. But yeah, I think that's great advice to anybody is yeah, absolutely have them convince you that it's legitimate versus the other way around.
I think that you got like you and the experienced investigators there have a totally different perspective on how to interact with the world because you've seen sort of like the worst of it to where Robin Hood has a damn Super Bowl commercial and you're looking at it skepticism, and I think that's exactly the right way to protect yourself.
Yeah, and mine actually started pretty early. So one of the other scams, I don't know how big it is anymore. So I used to, through college, work at Walmart, and I became a CSM, customer service manager. So I ran the front end, and I remember, thinking, why the hell would we have any of this little training? But when you're training to do the money service center. They talk about scams and stuff like that. And a lot of times, with Walmart training, everybody clicks through, they don't pay attention.
Yeah.
I probably did the same thing. Thankfully, having, my dad has a police background and those types of things. So I feel like I've had a different way of thinking my entire life. But I had a couple come up and visibly distraught. You could tell something was going on. And they wanted to send money. And we were taught to, ask questions. Some people get mad, it's like, why the hell do you need to know that? You don't need to know who I'm sending it to or why I'm sending it. But they're trained to ask those questions for these specific reasons. And these people, it was either, I don't remember if it was early in the morning or late at night, if I was closing or opening the actual desk. But they ended up getting a phone call stating that their kid, who had just went on vacation, was in a car accident and needed emergency surgery. And they, didn't have any type of identification for insurance or anything like that, so they needed some type of deposit or something like that to get started on this life-saving surgery. And as a parent, I can only imagine, I don't have kids yet, but that is, you probably hear your kid's been hurt and you really don't hear anything else. And these people were going to send it wasn't a large chunk of money. I mean, it was a couple $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, something like that. So it wouldn't have bankrupted them, but they didn't think about it. They didn't think twice. And I asked a couple of questions, kind of got that out of them, and I was like, okay, have you called your kid? Well, no, they're in the hospital. And I was like, well, call them. And it took a little bit of convincing, but it's like, I'm not doing this until you call them. And they ended up calling their kid. They got home, and they'd been home for 2 days. They just hadn't told their parents.
Jeez, how thankful for you were they?
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously, I didn't get a whole lot of thank you in the moment, which is perfectly fine. I didn't need it.
Yeah.
But, they ended up walking out crying, talking to their child and stuff. But I mean, these cons are a lot of based on just high emotion. How can they manipulate somebody with a very strong emotion like that? Love, fear, something like that. And they just prey on it.
That's so tough, because what else would you do if you're like a scammer and like your whole game is high pressure, push, push, push.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to do that is when someone's in like a highly dysregulated emotional tornado.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I mean, another kind of scam that I've had background with at Walmart was quick change artists. I don't know if you've ever heard that term.
I have a retail background as well, and I'm very familiar with that.
We had one that we ended up helping catch, but my hometown is along I-70, and so it's very easy from Denver. There's several Walmarts along the way. Right.
Yeah,
on
just
I-70.
hit them all.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they ended up, I think we were the second store to get hit. They ended up getting caught at the fourth one. But I enjoyed, and I say that very loosely enjoyed, but I enjoyed watching the video of these guys working because it was fascinating to see how good they are. It wasn't even a newer cashier, but it was a younger person. And within, I mean, it had to have been under 90 seconds, he got taken for $300 or $400 out of his till. And everybody's like, okay, Walmart lost $300 or $400. Oh well, but it's like, you have to realize that it's not only Walmart. We're also looking at the cashier as, can they do their job? I mean, has that happened? Have they had money gone missing before? And those issues can mean somebody loses their job because they didn't see that happening. That quick change artists are fascinating to watch.
I forgot about that. I worked at a national drugstore right after college, and I remember the little learning modules that you would just click through.
Yep.
We would all laugh about the quick change one. They were like, how could anyone be so dumb? And I just remember watching the video of an experienced cashier after they came back and said, I lost $200.
Yeah.
And it's incomprehensible, but they're just very good at the game because they practice it a lot of times.
Yeah. I mean, that was this person's reaction. Like I said, I mean, he wasn't even inexperienced. I mean, he had been, I don't even remember the amount of time, but I mean, he'd been there for a while. And he come up to me, and it was just dumbfounded look on his face. And it's like, I think I just got stolen from. And it's like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I actually don't know. And then he took me through the thing. And it's like, well, do you know how much? He's like, I have no idea. and it was literally hundreds of dollars that he essentially gave them, and you end up giving it to them.
That's what this cashier said to me. He's just like, I think I just gave him $200 and I don't know how.
Yeah.
And it was just the register. You look at the overhead camera and it's just this whipping back and
Yep.
forth of money. Fascinating. Um, Joel, we've had you on for this has been, I didn't notice we're at over a half an hour already. Extremely interesting stuff. I want to close out with you've given a couple good warnings, and unfortunately, some are easier said than done. Is in a highly emotional situation, stop and think reasonably. Tough. Be skeptical of crypto. Look for the most reputable sites if you're going to do that. Um, be extremely skeptical as a default when new people in your life are talking to you about money and investing. Is there anything else that you can think of that you'd offer as a warning or a mental framework to help prevent listeners or parents or grandparents of listeners to from getting scammed?
Yeah, the hardest one for probably a lot of us is communicate. Just take a second, literally, tell your grandparents like, hey, I don't want you to think that I think you're stupid, but I need to have this conversation so I feel good if something happens that you understand what's going on, because the technology world. I mean, there's some older people that just exceeded in that world, but there's the majority of them that don't, that hate technology, that have a cell phone because they have to, not because they want to. And those are the people that are gonna, get taken advantage of more easily. And I think just talking, letting them know, like, if something like that happens, like, again, these people do this for a living, you're not dumb, and you need to tell me so we can help, versus just letting it fester and letting it get worse. Because again, these people, once they find prey, they will beat it till it's dead. I mean, they will drain every last cent that they can. And a lot of times with money mules, for example, I mean, there are real world consequences. Even if you have no idea what's going on, you could still be civilly liable for whatever money you help them steal. So,
And it's really good advice. So, it's essentially if something feels off, it very likely is. So ask. And I think it's
yeah,
a great point to when you're warning your parents or vulnerable people around you, the best thing that you said is it's so important to make them aware of how easy it is to become a victim, how common it is, and not make someone feel stupid or
yeah,
embarrassed to raise a flag or sound an alarm when they walk into something like that. Open, effective communication has to be the best way to do
100%.
this.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, case in point, my dad actually called me the other day, or I mean, it's been a little while, and was asking about a company that had texted him, and I ended up looking it up, and he was like, yeah, there's a link in here. I was like, did you click it? Well, yeah, I looked at it. It's like, geez. I
yeah.
mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, people think of like, how can they get anything out of that? It's like they will send out 1 million of those a day, and if 10 people click on the link and they can steal $100 and do that every single day, I mean, that is a ton of money, and more than 10 people are going to click on it, unfortunately.
Um, Man, Joel, close up. It was a great episode. Really entertaining stuff. Unfortunately, people had to be scammed to get entertainment and educational value out of it. But
Unfortunately,
yeah, so lesson is talk to your loved ones, keep your head on a swivel, and approach things with skepticism.
100%.
All right, Joel. Well, happy investigating today. We're gonna get
Thank
back
you.
after it. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to the next one.